I watched her serve my husband a second slice of chocolate cake while my plate sat empty, and that's when I knew this wasn't an accident. My name is Monica, and for 3 years I thought my mother-in-law, Barbara, just forgot about me. Forgot to set my place. Forgot to bring my meal. Forgot I existed at her perfect dinner parties in her perfect house in Charleston, South Carolina. But that night, watching her laugh with everyone else while I sat there with nothing, I finally understood the truth. She wanted me to disappear. And I was done disappearing. Barbara's dinner parties were legendary in her circle. Every third Saturday, she'd host these elaborate affairs at her historic home on King Street, white linens, crystal glasses, the kind of silverware you're afraid to touch. Politicians, lawyers, old Charleston families. My husband David grew up in this world, where appearances were currency and silence was expected. I didn't. I grew up in a small town in Georgia, daughter of a public school teacher and a mechanic. When David brought me home to meet his family 4 years ago, Barbara's smile was tight. Polite. Cold. She looked at my off-the-rack dress and state school degree like I'd tracked mud across her Persian rugs. But David loved me, and we got married anyway. The first dinner party after our wedding, I was excited. Nervous, but excited. I wore my best dress, practiced small talk in the mirror. Barbara greeted everyone warmly at the door, everyone except me. She nodded, said Monica, like my name tasted bad, and moved on. Dinner was served. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, scalloped potatoes. Everyone got a plate. Everyone except me. I waited, thinking the kitchen was backed up. 20 minutes passed. David was deep in conversation with his father, didn't notice. Finally, I quietly asked Barbara if there was a plate for me. She blinked, as if surprised I'd spoken. Oh, did we miss you? How careless. The kitchen's closed now, dear. There's bread in the basket. I ate bread that night while everyone else enjoyed their steaks. David apologized later, said his mother was scattered, hosting was stressful. I wanted to believe him. But it kept happening. Every dinner party, the same script. Barbara would hug the other guests, compliment their outfits, personally serve their meals. I'd sit at the far end of the table, always the far end, and wait. Sometimes a plate would come, picked over leftovers, cold. Sometimes nothing at all. Dessert? Never for me. Coffee? Not unless I got up and poured it myself, which felt like admitting defeat. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, drop a comment and let me know I'm not alone in this. And if this story hits close to home, hit that like button, it helps more than you know. The worst part wasn't the hunger. It was watching David miss it. Or maybe not miss it, maybe he saw and chose not to see. His mother was difficult, he'd say. She's from a different generation. Just ignore her. But you can't ignore starvation. You can't ignore being erased. I started eating before we left for her parties. A full meal at home, because I knew nothing was coming. I'd sit at that table, stomach full but heart empty, watching Barbara laugh and serve and pretend I wasn't there. Then came the night that changed everything. This particular Saturday in late October, Barbara outdid herself. It was her 60th birthday celebration, 40 guests, catered food, a string quartet in the garden. David's sister flew in from Boston. His college friends. Neighbors. The mayor. I wore a navy dress David picked out, hoping it would help. Barbara greeted me at the door with that same tight smile, then turned to hug the woman behind me like they were long-lost sisters. The dining room was set like a magazine spread. Place cards at every seat. Mine was at the absolute end of the table, partially hidden behind a decorative flower arrangement. I sat down. Waited. The first course came out. She'd hired servers for this one, lobster bisque in white porcelain bowls. Everyone received theirs. The server walked right past me. I thought maybe they'd bring mine separately. They didn't. Main course, filet mignon, truffle mashed potatoes, grilled asparagus. The servers moved efficiently, placing plates in front of each guest. They reached my end of the table. Looked at me. Looked at each other. Moved on. No plate. My hands shook. I glanced at David, 3 seats away, cutting into his steak. He was laughing at something his father said. Hadn't looked at me once. Dessert came next, individual chocolate lava cakes with raspberry coulis, vanilla bean ice cream melting on top. Barbara herself carried the tray, personally serving each guest, leaning in to chat and smile. She reached the woman next to me, set down a cake, complimented her earrings. Then Barbara turned to me. Our eyes met. She smiled, not the tight, polite smile, but something else. Something satisfied. She moved past me to serve the man on my other side, the one partially blocked by flowers. No cake for Monica. I sat there, plate empty, hands in my lap, and something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It was quiet, the way a bone breaks underwater. I felt it settle, the decision, cold and clear. I wasn't going to beg anymore. Wasn't going to pretend this was normal. Wasn't going to protect David's feelings or Barbara's reputation or the precious family peace. I pulled out my phone under the table and did something I'd never done before. I took photos. My empty place setting. The full plates around me. Barbara laughing with guests. The dessert tray, conspicuously missing one cake. Then I stood up, carefully, quietly. No one noticed. I walked through the kitchen, out the side door, and got in my car. David texted an hour later, "Where are you?" I replied, "Ask your mother where my dinner was." He called. I didn't answer. David came home near midnight, confused and defensive. "You just left? You embarrassed me, Monica. It's her birthday. Did she feed me?" He paused. "What? Did your mother serve me food tonight? At any point?" I don't know, I wasn't paying attention to." Exactly. My voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. "You weren't paying attention. You never pay attention." I sat at that table for 3 hours, David. I watched 40 people eat 3 courses and dessert while I got nothing. Not a bite. Not a drink. Nothing. He ran his hand through his hair. "Come on, it was busy, mistakes happen. It's been 3 years of mistakes." I pulled up the photos on my phone, showed him. "This isn't accidental. Your mother hates me, and you've been letting her starve me at her table because it's easier than dealing with her." His face changed then. Finally, he saw it. "Oh my God," he whispered. "Yeah." We sat in silence. Then he said, "I'll talk to her." "No," I said. "I will." But I didn't confront Barbara. Not yet. Because Sunday morning, unable to sleep, I started thinking. Barbara's cruelty was calculated, precise. She knew exactly what she was doing. Which meant this wasn't just about me being beneath her son. There was something else. I opened my laptop and started digging. David had mentioned, months ago, that his mother was on the board of the Charleston Historical Preservation Society. A big deal in a city that worships its history. I found their website, their public records. Barbara had been treasurer for 12 years. Something itched in my brain. I'm an accountant, not a fancy one. I work for a mid-size firm, but I know how to read financial statements. I requested the society's public tax documents, the 990 forms nonprofits have to file. It took me 3 days of spreadsheets and coffee, but I found it. Barbara had been skimming. Not huge amounts, she was too smart for that. But over 12 years, small transfers here, mysterious, consulting fees, there, vendor payments to companies that didn't exist. I cross-referenced everything. Pulled business registrations. The fake companies were registered to a P.O. box that tied back to Barbara's maiden name. She'd stolen nearly $300,000 from a nonprofit dedicated to preserving Charleston's history. I sat back, hands shaking. This was bigger than dinner parties. This was fraud. Criminal fraud. And suddenly, her treatment of me made sense. I was an accountant. She'd always known that. She'd been terrified I'd look too close, ask too many questions, notice something. So she'd made sure I felt small, unwelcome, erased, anything to keep me away from her world. If you're still watching, here's where things get real. Smash that subscribe button because the revenge I served up. Ice. Cold. And you won't want to miss what happens next. I could have gone to the police immediately. Should have, probably. But I thought about those dinner parties. The calculated cruelty. The way Barbara smiled while denying me basic dignity. 3 years of humiliation. I wanted her to feel what I felt. I wanted her to sit at a table and realize she had nothing. So I made copies of everything, every document, every spreadsheet, every piece of evidence. I organized it into a folder, clear, damning, irrefutable. Then I called Barbara. "Monica," she said, surprised. "What a pleasant surprise." "I need to speak with you," I said. "Privately. Tomorrow, if possible." A pause. "Is everything all right with David?" "This is about you and me," I said. "Just us." "Your house, 2 o'clock?" She agreed, curiosity winning out. I arrived at Barbara's house at exactly 2 o'clock, carrying a leather portfolio. She answered the door in a cream cardigan, pearl earrings, every inch the Charleston matriarch. "Come in, dear. Would you like tea?" "No, thank you." We sat in her living room, her on the antique sofa, me in the chair across. She folded her hands, waiting. I opened the portfolio and placed the first document on her coffee table. This is the Charleston Historical Preservation Society's 990 form from 2019. These highlighted entries are payments to Magnolia Consulting Group. Her face didn't move. Yes. The society uses consultants. I placed another document down. This is the South Carolina Business Registry. Magnolia Consulting Group doesn't exist. The address listed is a P.O. box registered to Barbara and Whitmore, your maiden name. The color drained from her face. I kept going, document after document, my voice steady, professional. 12 years of theft, laid out in black and white. By the time I finished, she was gripping the arm of her sofa, knuckles white. "You can't prove this," she whispered. "I already have. These are copies. The originals are somewhere safe." Silence. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked. "What do you want?" she finally asked. I leaned forward. "I want you to understand something, Barbara. For 3 years, you made me feel like I didn't deserve a seat at your table. You starved me, humiliated me, tried to make me disappear, all because you were afraid I'd see what you really are. A thief. She flinched. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to resign from the Historical Society Board immediately. Quietly. A gracious letter citing health reasons. Then you're going to set up an anonymous repayment plan, every dollar you stole, with interest, returned over the next 5 years. I've already done the math, you can afford it without selling this house. And if I refuse? I picked up my portfolio. Then I take this to the district attorney tomorrow morning. You'll be arrested, prosecuted, and probably spend your 60th year in prison. Your name, the Whitmore name you're so proud of, will be destroyed. David will be devastated. Every Charleston society page will cover your fall. Her breath came in short gasps. You wouldn't do that to David. Try me, I said. I've been invisible for 3 years, Barbara. I've got nothing left to lose. The silence stretched. Finally, she nodded, barely. I'll resign. I'll pay it back. One more thing, I said. You're going to apologize to me. At the next family dinner. In front of everyone. Not for the money, no one else needs to know about that. But for how you've treated me. Publicly. Genuinely. Monica. Or I go to the police. Your choice. She closed her eyes. Fine. 2 weeks later, Barbara hosted another dinner party. Smaller this time, just family. David's sister, his father, his aunt and uncle. And me. I arrived to find my place card at the center of the table, directly across from Barbara. Not hidden. Not forgotten. Center stage. The meal was served, all of it, including mine. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, a perfectly composed plate set in front of me by Barbara's own hands. Halfway through the main course, Barbara stood, wine glass in hand. I'd like to say something, she announced. Everyone looked up. I owe Monica an apology. A long overdue apology. David's sister glanced at me, confused. I kept my face neutral. Barbara's voice wavered. I haven't been welcoming. I've been unkind, excluding her from family gatherings, making her feel unwanted in ways both large and small. That was wrong. Monica is David's wife, which makes her family, and I should have treated her as such from the beginning. She looked at me directly. I'm sorry, Monica. Truly. I hope you can forgive me. The table was silent. David reached over and squeezed my hand. I met Barbara's eyes and saw the fear there, the knowledge that I held her entire world in my hands. Thank you, Barbara, I said quietly. I appreciate that. We finished dinner. Dessert was served, tiramisu, one for everyone, including me. Barbara personally handed me my plate. As I took it, she whispered, the first payment has been made. I nodded. I know. I checked. David never learned the full truth. I told him I'd confronted his mother about her treatment of me, that she'd apologized, that we were moving forward. He was relieved, grateful, proud of me for standing up for myself. He didn't need to know about the money. That was between Barbara and me. Over the following months, the payments came like clockwork, anonymous donations to the Historical Society's Restoration Fund. I monitored every one. Barbara kept her head down, resigned from her board position, became mysteriously less social. At family dinners, she was unfailingly polite to me. Sometimes I caught her watching me across the table, that same fear flickering in her eyes. Good. Let her remember. It's been 8 months now since that terrible birthday dinner. People ask me if I feel guilty, if holding this over Barbara makes me like her. I don't think so. I didn't destroy her. I could have. One phone call and her life would have imploded, criminal charges, public shame, family devastation. Instead, I gave her a choice, make it right, or lose everything. She's paying back what she stole. The historical society is getting its money. And I get to sit at the table and eat my dinner, finally seen, finally respected. Some might say real forgiveness means letting go completely. Maybe they're right. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean making yourself small so someone else can feel big. I learned something in those 3 years of empty plates: silence isn't peace. It's just delayed pain. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever had to stand up to someone who tried to make you disappear, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. And hit that subscribe button, there are more stories like this coming, and you won't want to miss them. Standing up to Barbara wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy. But it was necessary. Because sometimes the only way to get a seat at the table is to flip it over and rebuild it yourself. I'm Monica. I was starved at my mother-in-law's dinner parties for 3 years. But I'm not hungry anymore.